The worst jobs in history.
That's enough.
If you ever think your job's crappy,
Does
try
that
having to
mean
plunge into a pit of literal human doo-doo feces every single night. Way back in the day in
That's
good
what it
old
means.
England, some daring men made a
course it
career
was
out
England.
of wading through human excrement. So-called gong farmers,
Yeah, you fucking dweeb. Because that's where everybody was living. You dweeb.
but it saw its height between the years of 1485 and
Clean my shit.
1603, also known as the Tudor
Yo,
period.
yo,
1585? Then America's been a thing.
No, no, it wasn't. I took AP US history. No,
So
it
when
wasn't.
did America become a thing? It wasn't. It was not in the 1300s.
Like 1600s. 16 something.
That's what I
I
said,
think
bro.
1607. No, you said 1500s. 1776, even later. Even later.
Oh, that's why it's 4th of July.
Okay, yeah, obviously. But there was,
They found the United Kingdom in 1922.
yeah, like these numbers are skewed. Like first American settlers.
1620.
Yeah,
1565.
1620. Yeah. No,
First
1607.
permanent
That's the
European
right state.
settlement. First permanent European settlement at St. Augustine in 1565.
Yeah, but those were the French. Like these guys are not your people. These guys are your people. These guys are the ones that
What?
won.
Who's your
If
people?
if
You're
like
my
Americans. No,
People.
I'm
I'm
not.
not
Oh,
American.
yes, I am. Anyways, the founding of Jamestown. That's what it was in 1607. I'm so smart. How do I still remember this?
You're in
Anyways,
college.
if um English English motherfuckers UK lost the fight, we would be speaking French right now. And low key, this whole side of the world would be France because they had huge army at the time. Americans, which were ex UK people at the time, they played very smartly. Like they used their surroundings. You know what I mean?
Ganderbeck.
Yeah.
Since this was way before the invention of the turlet, people were content with just slamming their cheeks down in a public latrine to pinch off a quick loaf. The other problem was the lack of availability of somewhere to go. Towards the end of the 14th century, it's estimated that there was only one public bathroom per 2,000 people.
You see, you just
Damn.
walk
Keep in
outside and
mind
see
that
somebody
all
taking
of
a
that
shit
human
in the
waste was
middle
just
of.
piling up in a literal
Probably.
stone-lined hole in the ground. So you
I mean, you realize they were throwing shit like in the middle of the streets of like the late 1800s, early 1900s, even in Chicago.
Fuck. Damn,
Yeah.
we were close, bro.
Yeah, but that was like 100 years ago, 120 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't that long ago if you think about it that way. Like they would take a shit and then just throw it out the window. Like, isn't that crazy?
were just dropping logs onto a mountain of timber. The local government,
Lions.
realizing that this horrid threat to
We
public
don't need no
health was
guns. We
fermenting
just
beneath
throwing
everyone's
shit.
feet, took action to allow the construction of private outhouses and latrines in residential areas as a way to disperse the smelly sewage. It didn't work all that well. So, with Dookie levels rising, help was needed to drain the pits. Enter
Dookie
the
levels
gong
rising?
farmer. The term gong,
My shit was
deriving from an
rising
Old English term meaning to go.
in the beginning
They
of
were
the stream.
also referred to as the much more mysterious and cooler sounding title of nightmen, as the only time that they were allowed to perform their duties was under the shroud of night, and that really sucked. There were no flashlights, spotlights, or illumination of any kind. You just had to hope that the moon was shining brightly
Look, there's Slender Man right here in the back.
Shit.
to light your way through the filth.
So
The
they don't
nightmen
have
would enter these
flashlights.
cesspits and drain the con.
Nah, but they had lanterns.
Yeah, nah, but they had the moon.
I,
Moonlight
I've
up,
played
spotlight
Assassin's.
up.
I've played Assassin's Creed before.
Lantern is basically just an old flashlight. It's okay.
Well, yeah, no shit. Like even a torch, you know, like they had that. Like they've had that since light was discovered.
Yeah.
Like they had light sources. I don't know. This guy's just being stupid.
Tents using buckets and shovels. Excrement was loaded into barrels and carted off to be dumped near the River Thames. Don't worry, it was used as fertilizer later. Maybe. These men would be knee-deep, waist-deep, even neck-deep in the stuff, which had its own risks, the first and foremost being asphyxiation. Cesspits were often enclosed spaces with little to no ventilation, so
Yeah.
the buildup of noxious and toxic gases was a very real threat. Although rare, a gong farmer could pass out from a
Yeah, but like back in the day, they didn't know this existed. So like, if you don't believe in something, it doesn't exist. So that's why they rarely died. You know what I mean? Because it didn't happen.
lack of fresh air and drown in the waste.
It didn't exist.
Another risk was poor maintenance. Cesspits were typically drained as needed, which, depending on the size of the thing, could be up to 2 years between sloppy scoops. Since these pits just sat there and rotted, it was common for
We should low-key be thinking like we should rank these jobs as like which ones can we do and which ones we cannot do. I can definitely not
That's
do this.
no.
I would be puking everywhere
That's
the
just
whole
the
time
worst plumber.
and die. Yeah, basically, that actually, I'm pretty sure it would be considered the plumber of that era. That was
Yeah.
actually a smart call. And not really plumber though, because plumbers is like about pipes.
The shit plumber.
They didn't really have pipes. A shit cleaner. That's
stone
it.
walls to
A
collapse
toilet.
in on the farmers while they harvested their crops. Any scrapes or bumps would certainly get infected,
Oh,
which could
100%.
only lead to a painful death. But these high risks were met with high reward. Since the job was less than desirable, gong farmers made quite a healthy living, about 6 pence a day.
Damn.
Damn.
You
Don't worry,
rich
honey.
as fuck.
I got 6 cents today.
Now,
Oh, Lord.
I'm not quite sure what that is in non-silly sounding money, but sounds pretty good. Problem is though, gong farmers perpetually reeked from their labors and were only permitted to live in certain areas of the city, with most of the public actively avoiding them and, well, treating them like crap.
That's crazy.
Chimney sweep. I feel like I would low-key be able to do this. I'm small, you know, and I'm pretty sure like the main thing he's gonna get to is that they would get stuck and die and suffocate. I think I've seen
Now,
about,
if you're looking for
heard
a
about this before.
soul-crushing, body-breaking job that pays next to nothing, you're an
Oh,
idiot.
I would not do that.
But I could recommend that you apply for the occupation of chimney sweep. These services were all the rage in, you guessed it, England's Tudor period. But the job has existed for hundreds of years. Rapid urbanization led to the construction of a lot of buildings, and each one of them suckers needs a
Isn't it crazy like how beautiful we used to build like way long ago before people started going to school about building?
Yeah. Now we have like a square just full of glass.
Yeah, like bro, look at this, bro. And you know what would it be? This one guy would be like, we should make this. And I'd be like, okay. Like, look at this, bro. And these buildings have existed for over like 300, 400 years, 500 years. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy
Shit
to
was
think
opium.
about. We don't need school. We don't need school.
source of heat. Got to keep them English toesies nice and warm during the miserable gray
What
winter
down,
months
pause.
until the arrival of the miserable gray summer months. So a lot of fireplaces and
leg.
chimneys were built to meet that demand. You do know how a fireplace works, right?
Yeah.
Make fire, fire make heat and smoke go up through chimney and blow out the top. But all of that burning
Oh.
of wood and coal creates lots of icky carbon-heavy flammable deposits that build up within the chimney. Big problem, cause if that's not properly cleared out, then things can just go, and there goes not only your house, but a few neighbors' houses as collateral damage. Well, the higher-ups didn't
Alright.
like the risk of their kingdom going up in smoke at any given time, so they mandated that chimneys must be swept at least 4 times a year or face heavy fines. Thus, the employment of chimney sweeps became critical. The problem, though, is that chimneys at the time weren't exactly designed for human entry and cleaning. Bugger. Most flue networks in the building were grouped together on the roof, but could have sharp turns as they angled out towards their respective fireplaces or furnaces. To make matters even worse, regulations shrunk flue sizes down to as little as 9 by 9 inches. This made it nearly impossible for full-grown men to slip through the cracks. The solution? Children. Really young children.
I was gonna joke about that.
Adorable, wide-eyed orphans were yoinked from poor houses and
Yeah,
taken
it's
on
not
as
about joking
apprentices
back then,
called
bro.
climbing boys, with opportunities
back
to
then we
one
still
day
do
grow
it.
into master sweepers themselves, if they lived
In
that long.
China.
Yeah.
If it wasn't obvious, chimney sweeping was extremely dangerous, especially for the little limber lads. Boys as young as 6 years old were sent up chimneys and told to get scrubbing. The physical dangers were abundant, as several children had died from getting stuck or horribly burned from scaling the scalding bricks. Keep in mind that these fireplaces were almost always in use, so those chimneys were hot and ready like a carry-out pizza. Now, if the cramming didn't kill you, the scrubbing would. Soot and creosote, the organic carbonaceous byproducts of burning wood and coal, are
Toxic.
carcinogenic. So if you're trapped in a confined
Yummy.
space just scrub-a-dub-dubbing away while sucking up hits of cancer-causing black powder all day day, things are not going to turn out well for you.
All day,
But
day.
it actually wasn't your lungs that you needed to worry about. No. It was your balls.
I'm not doing
No.
this. I am
No.
not doing this.
Scrotal
No.
squamous cell carcinoma, also known as chimney sweeps
Balls look like
carcinoma, or
that.
just
Why is it
straight
so
up
flat at the
scrotal
bottom?
cancer, was a death sentence. Something I didn't mention until now was that the young children, as a way to fit easier into the narrow, hot
Don't
chimneys,
cut their balls.
often went commando. No shirt, no shoes, no pants, but all service. The constant exposure to soot and such led to the development of tumors on their nethers. Once developed, they were lucky if they had a few years left in them. Sure, your sack is out of whack, but damn, that chimney's clean.
Matchstick.
You've
Matchstick
probably
girl?
heard of the radium girls, young women of the workforce that would paint luminous numbers and hands onto timepieces in the early 1900s. Well, this is similar. Towards the end of the 19th century, matchmaking was a pretty lucrative business. Not like pairing couples up, but making literal matches.
Hell yeah.
By the late 1800s, there were about 25 matchmaking factories across Great Britain, employing
That's
over
cool.
4,000 chaps and chapettes. The process, as with most industries at the time, involved working with some nasty chemicals. The flavor of the day here was white phosphorus, an unstable compound that burned fiercely when ignited. You know, perfect for the few seconds that you would need to set something ablaze. On top of being both easily ignitable and violently reactive with oxygen, it had the triple whammy of also being extremely toxic. Of all matchmaking jobs, roughly
Really?
half were involved in the direct handling of white phosphorus, with over 80% of the phosphorus fingerers being young women. These women would come to be known as matchstick girls. Day in and day out, these women were tasked with packaging the dipped matchsticks, with an entire workforce handling as many as 10 million across a 10-hour shift, meeting the demand of the 250 million matches being burned in Britain every single day. Remember that fire is what got people through the day. Need to cook? Fire. Need to keep warm? Fire. Need to see in the dark? Fire. Need to shrink your overhead? Fire. It was the biggest blessing
got
humanity
fire.
has ever discovered, and you can now summon it out of a little box in your pocket. The obvious problem is that fiddling with all of those fickle phosphorus fumes physically fucked you up. It was very common for both men and women to form phosphoric necrosis of the
Ew.
jaw. The condition, nicknamed Fossy jaw, developed after the long-term exposure to phosphorus fumes. Initial symptoms included simple toothaches, which evolved into complete tooth loss, abscesses, swelling of the gums, and complete necrosis of the jaw. To put it simply, your jaw rotted off. If you did get the
Damn.
jaw rot, there was about a 1 in 5 chance that the rest of your body would be rotting not long after from contracting an even worse condition
God
known as
damn.
death.
Like 1 in 5 means that there's 40 people in the room. What is that? 6 of them are dying.
Yep. Damn.
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 Yeah, that's a minimum of 6. That's
Yeah.
low-key crazy.
In
This was some
1888,
fire.
over 1,400 matchstick girls, fed up with this blatant disregard for their
My jaw
safety,
hurts.
decided to strike, demanding
For what
better
reason?
pay, working conditions, and abolition of unfair fines and penalties.
Overtime.
The strike lasted for 2 weeks before demands were
For my
met and
promotion.
accepted. 20 years later, in 1908, the British House of Commons completely banned the use of toxic white phosphorus in favor of the much safer and less toxic red phosphorus, which is what
Redstone.
we use in matches today, but not in the match head, on the striking pad. So remember to light one up
Ah.
for the matchstick girls.
Rick.
Rick.
If you think your job's exhausting, try hauling an entire freaking ship up a river with your bros. These are burlaks, or barge haulers. They hauled barges. Typically dirt poor peasants just looking for enough coin to eat for a week, these men were tasked with strapping on a strap and using whatever strength they had left in them to pull in ships from the Caspian Sea all the way up the Volga River in the days of the Russian Empire. Since ship
Get the
traffic
bag.
was near constant thanks to strong trade,
All right. If like this, like they did shit like this, you're telling me motherfuckers could not build the pyramids? Like people built the pyramids. The controversy is over right there. Boom.
Oh yeah, I did.
If you have enough people, you will,
I was there. Yeah.
make it happen. You were there. Good comms. Loki W comms.
Burlaks were in high demand to carefully guide the vessels up the Volga. But why couldn't the ships just sail up the river, you might ask? Because the Volga flows outward towards the Caspian Sea, and there were rarely favorable winds to propel a ship up the river, lest you risk beaching your entire ship on the banks. So why not hire a bunch of exhausted and desperate poor people to do the work instead? Whoa, slow down, fellas, there's no need for us to be Russian. Depending on the load size, burlak groups could range from just a few men up to 150 fellas pulling a single ship. But there was a moment of respite for these workers. See, one advantage to working in the Russian Empire was the cold winters. Can't exactly move ships upstream when the waterways are completely frozen over.
Yeah, you
So
can.
burlaks were seasonal, working dawn until dusk, thaw till frost. But since the combination of being poor and not working meant certain death, the men would pick up odd jobs in the winter to barely scrape by.
Hey, I make a duck. Smudgy, smudgy.
At the beginning of the 19th century, it is estimated that about 600,000 burlaks worked in the Russian Empire, but the evolution of ship technology and the invention of the steam-powered ship rendered the job obsolete. By the end of the 19th century, the burlak profession had vanished over the horizon.
Damn. That's cool.
Snake
I
milker.
could not know
Now I
this.
know what you're thinking, so stop it. This has nothing to do with milking your own snake or giving little pinches to little snake nips, which don't exist. Snakes aren't mammals. The job
How
of
do
a
they have
snake
milk?
milker was to extract their venom from their fangs. He
Oh.
looks cute, right? Think again. Snake venom was highly coveted for use in early warfare as a biological weapon, granting you the ability to proc tick damage over time to your enemies if you weren't able to finish them off yourself. Perhaps
Crazy
the best weapons
DPS.
of choice to get slathered in the stuff were arrows. Lethality of arrows varied greatly. Take one in the skull,
Yeah, this is
you're
what they
dead
did
as a
in
doornail. But take one
the
in a
arrow.
less critical spot like an arm or a leg, assuming you don't sever an artery, and you might just live to see another day. But that all goes out the window if the arrow tip was dipped in some venomous drip. Quite a few civilizations have been noted for using
I'll bet you.
envenomed or poisoned arrows throughout history. You've got
Doubt
the
it.
Khoisan people of southern Africa who have been using poisoned arrows for thousands of years in hunting large
That should
prey,
not do no damage.
and the Harmatilians who used viper venom against an invading Alexander the Great. But no army employed the use of
Alexander
snake
the
venom
Great was
better
Albanian.
than the Scythians. Also duking it out against Alexander the Great, the Scythians developed their own iconic poison for warfare, combining not only viper venom, but also putrefied human blood and excrement. Even minor scrapes from their weapons were lethal. So on top of dealing with being envenomed, you also dealt with the horrors of gangrene and tetanus. So with all that said and done, yeah, snake milkers. Like I
I'm
said,
learning so
it was their
much.
job to wrangle and wrestle up enough snakes to meet the demand of entire armies. But luckily, this wasn't a time for catch and release practices. Kill the snakes, take their venom. That's the job. Of course, that is easier said than done. By nature, snakes are shy little fellas and pretty hard to find. Chances are you get struck before you even noticed one. One catch of their fangs is enough for it to be game over. Snake milkers were considered lucky if they even managed to survive a single round of collecting.
I think it's time for a quick science lesson.
Venoms can be sorted into three main types: neurotoxic, hemotoxic, cytotoxic, yikes. Neurotoxins strike and destroy all your nerves. You're agonized and paralyzed as you can observe. Hemotoxins target all your healthy blood, thinning down or clotting up, so now you're done for, bud. Cytotoxins focus on killing all your cells, so you can probably guess that you won't be doing well. Just avoid snakes, and you'll be doing fine. I know you fellas and fellettes just love a good rhyme. So to close this chapter out, yes, snake milkers
No.
still exist nowadays, though only for medical research and developing antivenom rather than biological warfare. Or so we think.
Drummer
Or something.
boy.
Imagine getting ready to charge
For
onto a battlefield
bullets.
to either invade a country or defend your own. You see your fellow soldiers gearing up for battle with
I
their
was just
trusty
trying to play the drum.
firearms.
He gets shot.
You're given a drum. I gotta fight. Drummers, believe it or not, were a critical part of warfare in the days of yore. Since
They're
there
so
were
lame.
no such things as radios or more instantaneous methods of communication, drummer boys were employed and trained to maintain order on the battlefield, signaling commands, attacks, retreats, and everything in between. Peaking in popularity during the American Civil War, drummer boys were typically in their teenage years or
So
young
they're the
adulthood,
IGLs.
though some more famous drummer boys were
Yep.
much younger. Little Charlie King of the Union Army died in battle at the age of just 13, being the youngest casualty in the Battle of Antietam. Itty bitty Johnny Clem ran away from home and was taken in by the Union Army as a drummer boy at the ripe old age of 9. Just a few years later, the little fella fought in the Battle of Chickamauga in 1863 at the age of 12, where he shot and killed a Confederate soldier. What you gonna do? Shoot. He was promoted to
W.
sergeant, eventually retiring from the United States Army in 1915 as a brigadier
What?
general. But
That's
a rare occurrence.
crazy.
In reality, it would have gone more like this. Despite what people may think, drummer
Yeah.
boys did not lead troops into battle. That would be stupid. Instead, they would relay commands from behind soldier lines, though they were
Really?
still known to be valuable targets. If you break the communication line, you break down the army. Outside of combat, drummer boys had a wealth of other responsibilities, such as carrying messages between units, assisting battlefield surgeons with amputations, carting the wounded up the field, fetching supplies, or burying the dead.
So it was just
They
like a
very
pocket
rarely
save.
carried weapons of their own, so if they had to defend themselves in the heat
Where's
of
my hit?
battle,
Revive
they're
me,
pretty shit
Jet.
out of luck. If you wanted to be one of the most influential people in all of England but don't have a drop of royal blood in you, you'd want to squeeze into the role of the groom of the stool, a job requiring you to get up real close and personal with the king or queen at the time. Look, we all have to go once or 12 times a day, so someone as prestigious and important as the king is gonna need help doing so. I mean, imagine feeling the sudden urge to blow out your britches, but you have to fight through said bridges to accomplish the mission. Grooms of the stool.
Damn, bro, isn't it like right now? Look at this picture of this dude. I think that's Eric. Like, what do you think was going on in his head at that time?
Right?
Yeah. Nah, bro, this is Eric. Like, what the fuck?
You just said Eric like I'm supposed to know an Eric.
Yeah, I
like-
forgot, bros.
He's
It's
like-
Eric something like the fourth, fifth.
He's like, I'm gonna
sixth.
kill these motherfuckers and I'm gonna go back to my wife and bang her.
Like, bro, like, isn't that great? Like, these motherfuckers existed.
Yeah.
Like, look at us now. And look at him then.
It's the power of science.
You think King Von would bitch this guy? You think?
Oh, definitely.
Assisted the monarch with any labors regarding biological movements. This included helping the removal of clothing, preparation of the lavish and luxurious royal shipbox, and the removal of the splendiferous solids, but not before their proper examination. Yeah, that's right. Grooms of the stool were not only tasked with cleaning up the royal slurry, but making sure that the passings were healthy, taking notes of any abnormalities in appearance or frequency.
I need
These notes would be passed on
Oh,
to
I'd
the
be
king's
cooked.
personal physician to diagnose any possible ailments.
I pooped a shit the other day. It was like a U. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, that's not very helpful, is it? After the log was sent down the river, the groom of the stool would also assist in the cleanup effort, either by handing the king his own personal cleaning cloth or by taking up wiping duties themselves. Now you might think that
I
this
need
job
that.
sucked, but it was actually highly coveted and well respected, as grooms of the stool had access to the king outside of the public eye, allowing for valuable private conversations. Commonly high-ranking nobles or politicians, grooms of the stool were known to have influence in many formal rulings, laws, or personal life. So that Anne Boleyn chick's hot, right? No. The first documented groom of the stool dates all the way back to 1495 under King Henry VII. The role continued to evolve
That's
over the
crazy.
years to the title of groom of the stole, though they were more so referred to as either the gentleman or gentlewoman of the bedchamber, depending on the monarch in
Oh.
charge, with responsibilities eventually focusing solely on the king or
Zesty
queen's
ass.
wardrobe. The position was held for over 400 years until being formally discontinued under King Edward VII in 1901.
Bro, like that shit was like right there, bruh. Like that shit was like not even a while ago. That's crazy.
Shit
Well, that's
was
that video.
Damn near
I
yesterday.
have plenty more terrible jobs for a part 2. Want me to make it? Leave a comment. If you don't, okay. Here's another video.
That was banger. That was nice. I fucked with that. Loki learned a lot.